Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salatu was-salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we ask Him to bless this gathering. And we remind one another of one of the virtues of coming to a halaqah, of a gathering that remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down the angels and they surround the gathering. And that's good enough, right? And there are tens of hadith that elaborate on the virtues of seeking knowledge. Every step a person takes to the halaqah, they are getting reward. And every step back, they are getting to the reward. Add on top of that, you're coming to the masjid. So every step to the masjid is either raising a person a rank or expiating a sin. And the same thing on the way back. Add to that the extra reward for praying in the congregation. Right? And then just the list goes on and on and on, and we can probably do an entire lecture on it. But just to remind ourselves and refresh our minds and our motivation, rejuvenate our iman and our intentions as well, that we come here to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that the goal is to turn our hearts more and more towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So last week I concluded by introducing this new section in this unit of Tawbah, and that is what Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi titles as Mashahidul Khalq fil Ma'siyah, how people view sins. And this is more philosophical and not as much psychological. So a while ago we spoke about why people do sins and what pushes them to do a sin. That's more of the psychological end of this idea. This is more of the philosophical. When a sin occurs, right? You're looking at something and a sin occurs. Let's just say an injustice, right? Some guy comes, hits another person's car, and then just drives away, right? Without holding themselves responsible. That is an act of injustice that you see. How do we view that? In other words, how do we perceive, understand, process this event that just happened? Right? Ibn Qayyim says there are 13 ways. These aren't all separate. Sometimes a person will have multiple, right, understandings in one, and sometimes understandings build upon each other. And he starts off with the following, and this is the lowest and perhaps the least intellectual and the most common. And that is mashhad al-haywaniyya wa qada' al-shahwa. Right? And that is the person views what happens as being human, animalistic nature. You know how today, humans are animals, they evolved from animals, and the only difference between us and animals is that we speak. We can speak an understood language, right? And they will study animal behavior to understand human behavior. Now this is what happens in psychology, right? And philosophy and whatnot. So Ibn Qayyim says people are like this. When they view this, when they understand that whether it's the self who is guilty or someone else, they understand it as the person is acting based on instinct, and that's it. That's it. Qada' al-shahwa. They're just trying to fulfill a desire. Now this person who scratched the other person's car and left, their desire was to preserve their wealth. Right? If they weren't worried about money, they wouldn't have left. But if they're worried about money or some sort of insurance policy, they don't have insurance, or they have some tickets, whatever it is, there's a desire to protect the self. That's what it is. So the person acted based on animal instinct and to preserve or to fulfill their desires. Here, the desire being, in this particular example, not preserving one's wealth. And Ibn Qayyim says this is the mashhad, this is the ideology of the ignorance who view life as being nothing more than fulfilling your desires in any way possible. However you can fulfill your desires, go for it. And this is what we see today, right? Be you. Okay, what do you mean be you? What does be you mean? One of the most common slogans, right? Any commercials, all these fashion lines and whatnot, Nike, Adidas, look at all of their mottos. It revolves around doing whatever you want to do. That's what it is. Be you, right? Meaning do whatever you want to do, regardless of the consequences. YOLO. You only live once. What does that mean? Do whatever. Go all out, right? This is our reality, right? And these marketing companies or these companies that use marketing and advertising to sell their products, I mean, they understand culture. They are feeding off the culture and they're exploiting culture in order to sell products, right? It's not that you need this shoe, but if you don't have it, you're just, I mean, you're not part of society. What's wrong? Right? You're not part of the cool group. And you all have kids, right? Everyone here has kids. Mom, I need this. I need the Samsung, 10, Galaxy 10. Well, what's wrong with your current phone? No, it's not about my current phone is wrong. I just need it. What are people going to think about me? And to be quite honest, they have a point. They have a point. We have a different point, but they have a point. They're not talking nonsense, but they are talking ignorantly. Right? Because that type of need, that type of belonging or understanding of why we do things is very problematic. And as we see more and more, even atheists admit to this, that this type of lifestyle leads to a meaningless life. And a meaningless life increases the severity of depression, makes depression more widespread, and depression increases the is a risk factor of suicide. That's a reality. Living a meaningless life will more likely drive the person to suicide. That's the reality, right? So Ibn Qayyim, he points this out, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ وَلَا طَائِرٍ يَطِيرُ بِجَنَاحَيْهِ إِلَّا أُمَمٌ أَمْثَالُكُم. So when he says that, it's kind of the animalistic nature of human beings, or people are viewing humans as animals. He says, well, there's also some precedence to that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse of Surah Al-An'am, he says that there is not a creature that walks on the earth, nor a bird that flies with its wings, except that it has nations like you. Right? And one of the ways to understand this is that they have certain characteristics that they embody, and humans can embody that as well. So each particular animal has a type of personality. It's very one-sided, one-dimensional, right? An ant will always be an ant, despite what Disney wants to say. The ant wants to go and live somewhere else or be like something else. That's a different story. But an ant will always act like an ant. A bee will always do what a bee does. In reality, you will not find a bee, right, who's disputing with the other bees, saying, you guys are so, cultural, all these customs, you're confining us, you're preventing us from exploring. I'm going to go and go see what's out there, right? You're not going to see a bee walking around with ants. It's not going to happen, right? A dog will always act like a dog, and a cat will always act like a cat. They have certain personalities. What you find is that humans can embody some of these personalities, right? So some humans are like, and don't be offended by it, some humans are like dogs. They act like dogs. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this example, this analogy in the Quran. وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا فأتبعه الشيطان فكان من الغاوين ولو شئنا لرفعناه بها ولكنه أخلد إلى الأرض واتبع هواه فمثله كمثل الكلب إن تحمل عليه يلهث أو تتركه يلهث. ذلك مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآياتنا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here says, recite the example of the one who we gave the book to. This person had knowledge of the book, whatever book it may be, Quran, the Bible, or the Old Testament, the New Testament, a previous book, whatever it may be. They had knowledge of the book, right? But after attaining that knowledge, فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا, right? They shed the skin. That's a word. And salacha means literally to shed what you have on. So when a snake, for example, sheds its skin, that's called insilach. So they had this cloak of knowledge and piety around them, and they just shed it off. And they followed their desires. And now I'm briefing the verses. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the example of such a person is like the example of a dog. If you give it something, it's, what's this thing called? What is it called? Panting, yes, panting, there you go. All right, it'll pant, right? If you don't give it anything, it's panting. The same thing, meaning it never gets full. Whatever you give it, it's never enough. If you don't give anything, the same exact thing. And this is the example Allah gives of scholars or religious people, religious leaders, who follow their desires, who transform this noble status, this noble position into something that is meant to fulfill their own desires. And there are so many, right? This is the example. And such people, no matter how much they attain, they always want more. And even politicians are like this. in certain parts of the world, right? No matter how much money they have, it's not enough. No, I need more. I need more. And some will take that money and go and gamble it and lose it, and then they have to get more loans from other countries. And because of that, in order to keep the economy balanced, they have to increase the prices, right? And the society has become dirt poor, and he's still doing this. Gambling, well, it's never enough. No matter how much they eat, it's never enough, like a dog. Another example that the Quran gives is the one of a donkey. Donkeys are a very dumb animal, right? And they tend to move or work if you hit them. The more you hit them, the more they work. The less you hit them, man, they're just such a unintelligent animal. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives an example of that in Surah Al-Jumu'ah. He says, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ حُمِّلُوا التَّوْرَاةَ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَحْمِلُوهَا كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا بِئْسَ مَثَلُ الْقَوْمِ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the one, talking about certain scholars of the children of Israel. And of course, when Allah gives an example like that, He's talking to us too. Among Muslims will be people like this. This is why He's telling us this. Right? So among the children of Israel were people who had knowledge of the Torah. They had it. They knew how to read it. They knew how to recite it. They understood it. Right? They understood the language. But no matter how much knowledge they have, it's like a donkey. They benefit absolutely nothing from it. It's like a donkey when you put weights on a donkey. It's going to work, whatever. It's just more burden upon them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reprimanding such people. Right? And a donkey, right, no matter how many books you put on it, will never benefit from those books. It'll stay as dumb. That's it. So the person who's seeking knowledge but is not benefiting from that knowledge, their lives aren't transforming from that knowledge, right? Then this book is nothing more than added additional weight to them. Do something else. Right? Do something else. You don't need to be a sheikh. You can go and become wealthy through other means. There's nothing wrong with becoming a doctor so people could call you a doctor. I want people to set. I've had a teacher like this before, studying a PhD in economics. Right? He says, as soon as I get my PhD, I will not listen to anyone. Let's just say doctor. Islamically, nothing wrong with that. Go do that. Right? You want to become, the CEO of a company, so people say boss. Nothing wrong with it. Right? But if someone seeks knowledge because they want people to call them, the scholar so-and-so or the mufti so-and-so, that leads to hellfire. That leads to hellfire. Why? Because we, the people of the book, the people who take this book and want to be representatives of this book, they are representing Allah. They're not representing themselves. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Lord of the universe. He is meant for all. He takes care of all. So those who represent this book need to embody what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves and who Allah is. And Allah is the most generous. And therefore, if someone does not have a generous personality, they care more about the way they look on a flyer than what's going on to certain poor people in another part of the world. If someone's more concerned about the amount of likes and shares they're going to get on their Twitter post or their YouTube video, more than the content that they are presenting, right? Then such a person should go find some other thing to do. Really. Go do that. And you can keep Islam kind of as a hobby. You can participate in these things, do it without the harm that comes with it. Allah is the most generous, and His representatives, beginning with the prophets, were generous. Kareem, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them. The prophets were kurama. The prophets never asked for money. Ever. They weren't seeking social status, although they were accused of that. They weren't seeking wealth. They weren't seeking anything. All this money, it's yours. My reward is with Allah. All the prophets said this because they represent Allah, who is al-Akram. Iqra wa rabbuka al-Akram. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the very first verses revealed in the Quran. Recite and know that your Lord is the most generous. To let us know, Allah the most generous made this book very generous in what it has to offer us. And the one who taught us the book, the Prophet ﷺ, right, is extremely generous. And we all know this. Right? And you have other animals, for example, the peacock, right? The peacock. The peacock is so beautiful, right? It has all its feathers, and it shows off too. It's really funny when you see the peacock. It puts its feathers out and it starts turning around, right? Look at me at all the angles. It's like he's at a fashion line or something like that. Look at me at all the angles. Have you ever heard of peacock meat being served? I personally haven't, right? It's just not something you eat. So it has outer beauty, but on the inside, it's worthless. On the inside, it's worthless, right? And there are so many people like that, mashallah, they have this, the beard, right? The miswak is right here. The thobe is above the ankles, maybe even halfway. And they're walking around like this. As soon as they enter the masjid, right? But on the inside is nothing. I've seen people like this, especially the younger individuals who become very overzealous, who become very unwise in the way they apply the faith, right? They still haven't gained the wisdom, the knowledge of what it means to be a Muslim, what Islam is, what the Quran does, right? It's all outer image. It's empty on the inside. And sometimes you even find, parents like this. If their children read the Quran for 10 minutes a day, my children are angels. They're angels. Who knows what they're doing on the outside? Who knows? Whereas if my kids aren't reading the Quran, right, or they're not praying their sunnah prayers, oh my God, my kids, what's happening? What's going on? Sheikh, come help. Come help, what's going on? Your kids have good manners. They're good people. They're kind to others. No. They're not reading Quran. It's okay, they'll read Quran later. Right? It's not that reading Quran isn't important. But understand that there are some things more. If someone's reading the Quran, they don't understand it, what's the point? Yes, there is reward. I shouldn't say there's no point. No, there is a point, right? All right. You get reward for it, right? And you still have this attachment to the Quran. But embodying the principles and the teachings of the Quran is more important than simply reciting it, right? I mean, look, there are some people who are fighting for their religion, defending their religion, but as soon as you criticize them, you become their enemy. Well, what happened to the generous attitude to people? What happened to the kindness, the compassion, the forbearance? Wasn't the Prophet ﷺ like that? That's who he was. That's who he was. That's who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. So if a person has this outer image of religion and piety, but as soon as you talk to them, they are like the devil. What do we benefit from all? It's empty on the inside, right? And that harms a person. SubhanAllah. Right? So you find that, on the more positive side, you have, for example, horses and sheep. Sheep are kind of this scrubby, small animal that goes around to the bar, right? But when you look at sheep multiply very quickly. So someone who has 2 sheep, male and female, by the end of the year they have 40. And sheep is money. For Bedouins, for farmers, sheep is money, right? Someone comes, hey, I want to buy a sheep from you. Okay, $300. It's money. So if you have 40 sheep, times that by 300. Sometimes people have 1,000 sheep. It's a lot of money. So it multiplies fast. It's one of the best investments for such a lifestyle. And its meat is delicious. Our cultures our ethnicities use lamb meat more than cow meat. It's a lot. It's very tasty. Right? It tastes better in barbecue, except steak. Steak is very delicious. But it's so good, right? We use it a lot. Its milk is really good. We use its wool. Everything about the sheep is usable and beneficial to the human being. Barakah, it's blessed, even though it's scrubby. So you might find some people who, they're not the most professional, or they don't have the most high-ranked positions or jobs, or they're not the richest people, but man, they have so much good in them. Anytime that person's around you, all they bring is good. Anytime you hear about the person, it's something positive. Their manners are good. Their attitude is good. They're optimistic. They're happy. They're good fathers, or they're good mothers, or they're good children, etc. Blessed. And also among the noble animals is the horse. Inshallah, horses are beautiful. The horse, it's proud, but loyal. It's strong, right? And it's something that's dedicated. It's expensive, right? It's worth something. And when you ride it, man, it gives you this feeling of strength and power and nobility. In fact, there's a narration that says that horses every day make dua saying, "Oh Allah, make humans love us. Make humans love us. Make humans love us." And Sulaiman, alayhi salatu wassalam, he used to love his horses. He used to love his horses. So there are animals that are, negative. They have negative attributes. And likewise, there are animals that have very positive attributes. And because of this, you find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made certain meats forbidden upon us, such as meats of predators. We're not allowed to eat lion meat, or tiger meat, or eagles, or hawks, because of their nature. Right? And it's said that, this is a saying from even a long time ago, you are what you eat. And apparently neuroscience is starting to show this more and more, that what you eat, the intestines and digestive system, releases something that affects the mind. So you are what you eat. So something that has a negative nature or negative attributes, we're forbidden from eating it. Having this predatorial attitude is very dangerous for human beings. We're not meant to be like that. Also, it's said that Bedouins are very rough, they're stiff, they're harsh. Why? Because they eat camel meat. And camels are exactly like that. They're extremely jealous. They don't forget any bad that you do. This is serious. This is actually real. It's said that one individual, when they slaughter a camel, they have to take it away from its family. The family can't see it, or else they remember. So he took this baby camel away to slaughter it, and after he slaughtered it, he noticed that the mother is looking. And he said, uh-oh. So what did he do? He went in his tent, he took his gown off, and he went under the other side of the tent and ran away so that the mother thinks that he's still in the tent. He said the camel went to the tent, started stomping on the tent. Can you imagine that? And when it saw the guy's gown, it thought it killed the guy. SubhanAllah. That's a camel. They have this rough, stiff, sturdy personality. And Bedouins are like that because they eat camel meat. Right? Normally I make fun of, for example, Jordanians, but I'm just going to, because this is recorded, I'm going to skip that. All right? But the point of this perception of sins and actions is that these people who view human behavior in this manner, they're viewing it as being nothing more than animal instinct, or a person trying to fulfill, protect, achieve their desires. That's it. There's no more to say. Why didn't so-and-so do that? He felt like it. That's it. There's nothing beyond that. There's nothing more to understand. There's no purpose, there's no meaning, there's no nothing. Right? The next mashhad is Ahlul Jabr. Rusum al-Tabi'a wa lawazim al-Khilqa. This is a little bit more philosophical. These people will look at behavior as being natural behavior. A human being is of this type. Now this is kind of like the first one, but a little bit more advanced, right? A little bit more advanced. They are saying they're perceiving the human being as a series of systems, right? You have the digestive system, you have the blood system, you have whatever these systems are. They're like that, and these dictate a certain type of behavior, right? You are hungry, your body sends a signal to your brain, I'm hungry, I need food, so you go ahead and eat. This is how they're understanding it. So it's a little bit more knowledge than the previous one, but it's still kind of on the same feeling. Humans are behaving the way humans behave. That's what they're doing. Right? And there are certain necessities for the human being, and that drives their behavior. I feel hunger, I'm going to go eat. Right? It's not like the first one where it's I have a desire to eat and I'm just going to do that. Right? So this is a little bit more, but in line with the previous one. And this tends to be the view of philosophers and physicians. Physicians, not talking about today's physicians, but more of pre-modern physicians. When you look at medicine, how it was approached in older times, they viewed the world as being 4 types of elements, right? I don't remember them. Water, fire, earth, so water, air, earth, and fire, right? These 4 things, and they indicate certain things and behaviors and why people react certain ways and how certain climates affect a person's behavior, etc. Right? So modern medicine has turned away from this. They have other ways of portraying human behavior, or at least biological behavior. But this is where it's coming from. The third mashhad is Ahlul Jabr, ay an Allah qaddara kulla shay'in. This is more theological. Now, if you remember when we took our Aqidah Tahawiyya class, we spoke about 2 groups in regards to divine decree, al-Jabriyya wal-Qadariyya. This mashhad is about the Jabris. those who say that we are forced to do what we do. We have no will. God decrees everything, and his decree is the ultimate authority, and it affects what we do. Meaning, why are you here right now? Because God forced you to be here. That's what it is. His decree is what determined you being here. It has nothing to do with your will waking up this morning and saying, I want to go. I'm going to put effort in to come and do it. You have no will. You do what God forces you to do. Now, when this occurs, the person also removes wisdom from divine decree. There is no really wisdom. There's nothing really going on. It's just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing what he wants to do, and there's no need to understand human behavior beyond what we believe is God's authority. That's it. So why did why did Allah send prophets, right? There's a question. Well, because God decreed it, and that's it. It happened. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing more to do. Right? Because of this, really a person's desires to do whatever. So when a person desires to get married or a person desires to eat, it has no meaning. Because it's not you having a desire and wanting to fulfill it, rather it's God decreeing that at this point, at this day, you're going to marry so-and-so, and that's it. There's nothing more to see, right? And I know some cultures still have to deal with that in regards to marriage. This is qadarullah. You're married to so-and-so because God decreed it. That's it. There's no such thing as choice, so you have to stay in the marriage, or else you're going against God's decree. But that's kind of contradictory, right? God decrees and he's forcing things upon you, how can I have the will to go turn away or to divorce the individual? So it makes no sense. And that's very, very problematic. So likewise, when you look at halal and haram, that which God has made permissible and that which he has made forbidden, and this perception, it has no meaning. It's just nothing more than God's decree. That's it. Why did God decree alcohol to be forbidden? Just because. It's God's decree. God's enforcing his authority upon us. That's it. There's nothing more to see. There's no wisdom behind it. So these individuals, they don't see their actions as having anything to do with one's will, human behavior, or anything like that, and therefore they lose out on a lot of the meanings that they can attain from perceiving it in a different way. Now, as we go on, these will make more sense. Once we get into the mashahid, the views of believers and the various levels there, it'll make more sense what we're talking about here. Okay. The fourth mashhad is that of the qadaris. So you have the Jabris who say that God's decree is what determines everything. The Qadaris are on the opposite end of the divine decree argument. They say God has absolutely nothing to do with what goes on earth. Right? We do what we do outside God's authority. God has no authority over what we do. He cannot interfere in what we do. In fact, he doesn't even know what we are going to do. This is what they say. So there are two opposites on the same spectrum. And when this is one's perception, you find that, like the previous one, you cannot understand the wisdom beyond a person acting as a human being, right? So these four mashahid are kind of tied, overlapping a little bit, but they have a particular angle in which they view things. The first two are pretty much what we'd call secular, atheistic understanding of human nature. The second two are theological, although they're very similar to the first two, but they're theological. They have the theological element. The reason things are happening is because God decreed it. That's it. He's enforcing his authority. Because if we don't believe that God is in control of everything that is happening, that means we are limiting his authority, and that means we are depicting him as being imperfect. Right? Now the Qadaris say that no, it's in fact the opposite. If we say God is responsible for everything that goes on earth, well, there's a lot of injustice that goes on earth. There's a lot of disobedience that goes on earth. How can God allow that when he doesn't like it? Right? So they say no, God doesn't know. Because if we say God knows and he is the one decreeing this, that means he is acting unjustly. And that's imperfection to God. So you have these two different two sides of a inappropriate spectrum. What the Sunnis and the Orthodox Muslims believe is that yes, Allah is in control of everything, and yes, we don't attribute injustice to God, right? And we spoke about this, we went into the details, but at the same time, there's a difference between God willing something to happen versus God actually doing it himself. So God allows things to happen, right? But it doesn't mean he is pleased with that, or it doesn't mean he commands it. The fact of the matter is God gave us free will. Why? Because that is part of the wisdom of our creation. He created us and gave us the choice to worship him. That is the wisdom behind, or one of the wisdoms behind our particular creation. If he wanted us to be like angels, he could have made us like angels, right? If he wanted us to be a creature that only obeys him, cannot disobey him, well, there are the angels. He could have made us like that. But our particular creation has a different goal. There's a different vision behind humans when you compare us to angels. Okay, so those are the four, what we would say are inappropriate, negative ways of viewing human or viewing sins and what goes on, events on earth. And all four of them really take away the wisdom behind what goes on. And when you look at it, it really, in the end, it goes back to either viewing Allah as careless of what's going on or the one guilty of what's going on. And this tends to be the majority of people today. That's how the people view it today. Atheists, right? Most atheists say, if God exists, why is there so much evil? So they're holding God responsible for what's going on and say, okay, then he just doesn't exist. Or else if he existed, all this wouldn't be going on. The next mashhad, the fifth one, now we're getting into that which is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's a little bit longer one, so we won't be able to finish it in this session, but we'll start it because we still have a few more minutes. Or maybe we will be able to finish it. And that is رؤية حكمة الله فيما يقدر ويقضى وهو مشهد أهل الاستقامة. This mashhad is viewing what's happening based on the wisdom of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed and what he has allowed to happen. And this is the way of the people of the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path. These are the people who understood how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala engages and interferes in our reality, and why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows things to happen and doesn't allow other things to happen. So when they look at a particular event, okay, so let's go back to the very first example I gave, and that is the person, as they are backing up, they scratch another car or they dent it, right, and they just run off. The believer, right, who's trying to understand the wisdom of what's going on, they view it as being, for example, the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this sin that occurred is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He allowed it to happen. However, he allowed it to happen because it will result or lead to something better. It will result or lead to something better. So let's say the owner of the car that was dented is a Muslim, right? And me as a Muslim, I'm viewing this and seeing what's happening, right? This occurs, and now the car that hit the guilty one left, and now the owner of the car that was hit is coming, and they see this and they're like, oh my God, what the heck happened? And they're looking around, what happened? How do I perceive this? How does this individual perceive what happened? How? Well, there are a few ways. One way is this is an expiation for sins. I'm not saying we start accusing people. I'm not saying, oh, you know what? I remember that time, yes. God is punishing her. No, that's not what we mean. What we mean is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is rewarding this individual by expiating her sins in this manner. The car got dented, who cares? Is it the end of the world? Absolutely not. But in the next life, if those sins are there, it feels like the end of the world. So it's something positive. Why did Allah allow that to happen? Why did He allow this injustice to happen? Because it leads to something better, something good, something that He is praiseworthy for. And this individual, when they see their car like this, what is the sunnah when you see something that it bothers you or a calamity? What do we say? Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. right? This beautiful statement. We are to Allah, and we will return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what does the Prophet ﷺ say for the reward or the result when something bad happens to someone and they say this? What does the Prophet ﷺ teach us? Allah will replace that which was taken or that which they lost. Allah replaces that. An opportunity has just opened. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of her dua, right, will open the door to a good deal on a better car. That's another way of looking at it. Perhaps this individual, and this sometimes happens, an individual is planning to do something wrong. They have a plot, man, so-and-so has been bothering me. I need to enact my revenge against her. Right? And they're plotting and they're thinking. And this happens. And they view this as being from Allah. Hit the brakes. This is what Allah said. Hit the brakes. Slow down. Right? Allah is interfering and preventing her from doing something that could be very bad. A bad event leads to something good. Right? And there are other ways we can interpret this. But no matter how we look at it, when we add Allah to the image or to the situation or event, we as Muslims always believe that Allah does what's good. He is the most merciful, He's the most compassionate, He's the most generous, He's the most kind, He's the most forbearing, He's the most patient, etc. And therefore everything and anything that occurs is based on His names and attributes. Right? So if anything occurs in the universe, well, it occurs through His wisdom, through His mercy, through His compassion, through His concern for His creation, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the way we look at it. Wisdom. What is the wisdom? Why did Allah allow this to happen? Well, because a greater good is going to come out of this, right? So it gives this optimism, this iman begins to surge in the person's mind. And this type of iman, this type of perception builds tranquility in the heart. Whatever happens, right? No matter how severe or how insignificant, whatever happens, I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed it to happen, and He allowed it to happen because it leads to a greater good. And preventing a harm is leading to a greater good, right? So what you find is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He allows these things to happen, there is a vision behind it, and that vision is that it leads to something else happening that is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas if that particular event did not happen, it would not lead to that greater good, right? And that is less beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, if you have two scenarios here, a evil occurs, but that evil spawns a lot of good. Right? So that's one scenario. The other scenario is that you stop this evil, but as a result, that greater good does not come about. Right? So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose? He chooses the first one. Because a little bit of harm that brings about a lot of good is better than preventing a little bit of harm that prevents a lot of good. Does that make sense? Now, one might say, well, what do you mean? If cops and governments acted this way, which they do, at least the government, right? They'll do something in order to prevent something harder, right? Fir'aun, he was a master at this. And most governments do the same exact thing. When things are getting riled up, the society is going crazy, they're upset, they're frustrated, right? Or an event occurs that people are focused, oh my, what the heck just happened here, right? And the government wants to take people's attention off of that. What do? They do another event to distract them. And you see this in the Middle East so much. So much. When, for example, right now there are protests, very massive protests occurring in Lebanon, in Iraq, and in Egypt. How many have heard of this? Where did you hear of it?
I heard it on the news.
What news?
So Facebook.
Facebook.
From CARE.
From CARE.
Yes.
It's not on CNN. It's not on Fox News. It's not on BBC. They might have it as like those very small, you have to scroll down for 20 minutes until you find it. Why aren't they saying this? Why?
Because
they don't want another Arab Spring to occur.
Yeah.
So when a certain event is happening, you distract people with other things. So they don't look at it. Fir'aun was a master at this. The sorcerers came and Musa threw his stick, it became a big snake, it swallowed up their magic and their illusions, and people are looking at this. The stick turned into a massive snake, and they're looking at this. This isn't magic. This is really a prophet, right? This person's he's saying the truth. So what did Fir'aun do? He stands up. I knew it. I knew it. My intelligence agency, they said that Musa was conspiring with these people. They were all part of a group, right? And they were right. He distracted them. What are we going to do? And he says, okay, let's go ahead and build these pyramids, these structures that will elevate us into the sky, and we'll go and look for God. Now he has the entire population working on these pyramids instead of thinking and contemplating about what Musa said. A master at that, distraction. Right? Even magic is distraction. They're always talking, doing things, right? Unnecessary things here, left and right, to distract you from what they're really doing, right? Illusion, distraction. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, so that's the question I was getting at. So why don't we human beings act this way? Because we don't know the results of what's going to happen. We prevent harm because we know harm and good. That's it. We don't know what builds off of that, right? Trump came, right, President Trump, and he's used Islam as a pawn and Muslims as a pawn in his political game, right? Well, we don't know the good that's going to come out of it. We can't predict the future, so we must act based on what we see. Is this good for us or is this bad for us? Not beyond it, but Allah knows what's beyond. So He allows a little bit of evil, what we perceive to be evil, in order to lead to a lot of good. But in reality, to Allah, that's not an evil, because in of itself is a good. For example, the example I gave, the individual sees their car being dented as an evil that has befallen them. But to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that an evil? No, because it expiates sin, it leads to good, it gets a person closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is it? It's just a car, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed, for example, certain nations to deviate from their theologies, allowed shirk to occur. Why? So that He can send the prophets, so that He can send down the books. There will be a source of light and guidance to mankind. Right? He prescribed, for example, striving and struggling for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is more beloved to Allah than that not happening. We could ask the question, Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, and that tree. We are in what we are in today, this mess, because of that tree. This is what Musa alayhi salatu wasalam tells Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. Right? You ate from the tree and you got us in this mess. This is in the hadith, right? It's a funny story to us. But this is reality. Why didn't Allah just put a wall around that tree? A gate. It saved us from all of this. Because a lot of good would have been lost if not that. Because Adam ate from the tree, because he ate from the tree, he was sent down to earth, and we were given this beautiful tool that we have been studying for the past 15 weeks called Tawbah. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have Tawbah. And if it wasn't for Tawbah, we would lose a lot of understanding of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. His mercy, His compassion, His kindness, His forgiveness, His forbearance. We would lose these elements. We wouldn't know Allah as this. We say, yeah, Allah's all forgiving, but what does that really mean? Because it's theoretical. It's not an experience. Because Adam ate from the tree, Allah gifted us this tool of Tawbah. That is the essence of Iman. That is Islam. It is Islam. Tawbah is all about, Islam is all about Tawbah. And we said in the very beginning of this unit, Tawbah is about that which brings you closer to Allah. It's not just about asking forgiveness for a sin. So Allah allows a small evil to happen, what we perceive to be a small evil to happen, in order for a lot of good to occur. If it wasn't for our ability to choose belief or disbelief, why would there be any prophets? What would be the point of prophets? There would be no point. What would be the point of sending books? Look at this Quran. It is our treasure. It is our happiness. It is our guide. It is whoever knows the Quran, the more a person knows the Quran, the more they can engage the Quran, the more beautiful their life is. So without sin, there would be no reason to send down the Quran. Without Adam eating from the tree, alayhi salatu wasalam, there would be no reason for this Quran. This is the literal word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is speaking to us, to each and every one of us. So that the person, the atheist would say, well, where is God? Why isn't He saying anything? Well, he is. He's right here. And this is tangible. Right? They'll say, if I can't see it, if I can't hear it, if I can't smell it, I can't touch it, then it doesn't exist. Well, we won't say that to God, because you can hear God right here. You can engage this, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanAllah, in several verses, one of them is which, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا مِنَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. Examples of what we're saying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made a mujrim, a criminal, to go along with every single prophet. Every prophet had to deal with criminals. They tended to be from the elites. Every prophet had a devil harassing him. It's the reality. For the Prophet ﷺ, it was Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, right? When he went to Medina, it was the hypocrites, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, these people. Always. Why? Because of their presence, it causes a lot of good. This is the reality. This is human reality. Allah is dealing with us as humans and our nature. Allah could have made it all the way He wanted to. He could. But Allah deals with us based on our nature. He talks to us based on our nature. And He puts catalysts in a way that will develop us and make us better. The fact of the matter is, when you have two opposites or rivalry enriches human beings. That's the reality. Right? Sometimes it goes beyond, it gets violent and whatnot. This is not what I'm talking about. But when a person has to deal with a counter culture or a counter ideology, right? It forces them to continue to think, to develop, to research, to improve on themselves. And in that improvement, they come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it wasn't for people challenging Islam, we would be sitting and watching TV shows and doing nothing. That's the reality. But when there are people there like Fox News and these outlets that are Islamophobic and they are challenging Islam, they are attacking Islam, well, it causes us to get up and to work and to improve our iman. And that is something beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So each prophet had a criminal to deal with. And it was those criminals who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to improve the believers, to raise the ranks of the believers. Right? So when, for example, the Battle of Uhud occurred, well, the pagans were victorious over the Muslims. But were they really? In this life, yeah, we perceive it that way. But in the next life, those pagans who killed those believers essentially gave them the keys to paradise. And that's victory for the believers, not victory for the pagans. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses all of this in order to strengthen His friends, to make His friends better, His awliya, to increase their iman, to strengthen their iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ, until He says in the same verse, وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَقْتَتَلَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ وَلَكِنْ اخْتَلَفُوا فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ آمَنَ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ كَفَرَ. If Allah willed it, the people after these prophets would not have differed. So the people after Musa would not have differed, leading to violence between one another and to deviation in religion. Same thing with after Jesus. Same thing with after Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. If Allah willed it, they wouldn't occur. There's a wisdom there. It's because of these things that happen, it enriches who we are as believers. It strengthens our relationship with Allah and ultimately raises our ranks in the next life. Now, don't misunderstand what I'm saying as just let things happen and be careful. No. We as believers have to build a system that prevents these things from happening. And if they happen, it mitigates a lot of the harm and the damage. We need to do that. But again, it goes back to what I was saying just moments ago. That is not because we are trying to prevent the good, but rather because we don't know the good. Allah does, we don't. We have to deal with our realities and what we know in our realities. Right? Murder is wrong. We need to prevent it. But if Allah allows a murder to occur, well, there's a wisdom behind it. So after the fact, we say, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. We got to deal with it the way we know how to deal with it. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا أَيْمَانَكُمْ دَخَلًا بَيْنَكُمْ. We'll skip that verse. And that one too. Likewise, because of these events, something else happens that we tend to overlook. But I'm going to stop there because we went a little bit over time. I'll give you a little glimpse, spoiler and sneak peek, right? And that is when these events occur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes Himself apparent. Makes Himself apparent. What do I mean by that? When a friend of Allah is attacked and is harmed and is dealt with unjustly, you find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will overpower his enemies and get him out of that situation and raise his rank among the people in a way that is not explainable except that Allah gave that person victory. Right? To let the people know Allah is in control. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is al-Wahid al-Qahhar, the one and the overpowering. I mean, it's quite amazing. And the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, I keep going back to this. It is absolutely, it's unbelievable that Musa, who was born in a year where Pharaoh was killing the boys, got out of that. And when his mother put him in the casket, or that box, it was untied, right? It got loose, and it landed at the palace of Pharaoh on the year in which he was supposed to be killed. And Pharaoh took him in, raised him in his own palace, despite knowing that he is from the children of Israel, and despite knowing that someone from them is going to, destroy his kingdom, or him. He was raised, and despite accidentally killing someone, he got away. And despite coming back and going at it as a prophet for years, decades, back and forth, Pharaoh never laid a finger on him. What is that saying? Allah is in control. That's what it's showing us, that Allah is in control. And we'll get into more detail inshallah next week. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.